irony of that is you actually want some fear and anxiety in your life. Maybe not anxiety, but stress in your life. You don't want to get rid of it. That little bit of anxiousness, that little bit of fear, that's what keeps you from going down the dark alley at midnight. And so you need a little bit. It's just when it peaks and goes down the hill, is now you're dealing with anxiety, and now you're dealing with overwhelm and worry.
Welcome to the Everyday Epigenetics Raw, Real, Relatable podcast. I'm your host, Susan Robbins, epigenetic human performance coach. This is where we discuss all things lifestyle, environment, food, exercise, work, mind, and social interaction as they pertain to epigenetic expression in a way that's relatable to everyone. So if you're ready to start viewing you as an individual, take control of your life and health, and get results, buckle up, here we go. Welcome to the Everyday Epigenetics Raw, Real, Relatable podcast. I am your host, Susan Robbins. This is where we talk about everything lifestyle and environment and how it relates to our genetic expression. So today, I'm going to have a fun one on that is going to resonate, I guarantee you, with the majority of you out there in some aspect, as most of this stuff does, but this one will really hit you. We're going to talk today about overcoming fear and anxiety, which is plaguing society as a whole right now, but individuals in different areas, whether it's test taking, public speaking is the biggest fear, I believe, that I've read, the biggest fear out there. Athletes with peak performance, and we have a hypnotherapist, certified clinical hypnotherapist, to talk about this. And he's also going to talk about getting in state at the start of your day. So this is going to be a powerful one. Buckle up. I've got Craig Meriwether. He is a certified clinical hypnotherapist, medical hypnosis specialist, neuro-linguistic programming or NLP specialist, founder of Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy, helping people eliminate the negative emotions and limiting beliefs that keep them from reaching their full potential. And we know this affects epigenetic expression because it creates stress, and that even affects your epigenetic aging. For over 12 years, Craig has been helping people heal from early childhood trauma, helping cancer patients with pain control, veterans with PTSD, love it, students with test anxiety, entrepreneurs with confidence, thank you, sir, athletes with peak performance, another one of my jams, and really anyone who may be dealing with overwhelm, fear, and anxiety. Again, those last three are things that I hear every single day in my practice. Craig has created something called ACE Any Test. It's the most comprehensive course for test anxiety relief, so people can eliminate anxiety around exams, but not just test taking. Could be auditions, job interviews, public speaking, or anything to help them increase confidence and self-esteem. So welcome aboard, Mr. Craig Meriwether.
Oh, thank you, Susan. I've been looking forward to this. I really appreciate the invitation to be on your show. And yeah, we got a lot of powerful stuff to talk about today. So
absolutely. Let's hop right in.
Yeah.
How did you come into all of this?
It was like a lot of people who get into the healing business, if you will, the healing trade, is my own hurt and pain I was dealing with. I struggled with depression, anxiety. Started around my teenage years. And my mom struggled with depression. And so whether I was mirroring stuff I saw in the home or it's a genetic thing, I've just started feeling that heaviness in my mid-teens. And this is the 1980s. So there's obviously no internet to find any information. They didn't even have the medications yet. The Prozacs, the SSRI drugs didn't come out till the mid-90s, late 90s. And so really all you had was talk therapy and whatever book you could find at the bookstore or the library. And a teenager, you're not going to do probably either of those. And so I just lived with it, but just, wore that heavy coat and just thought that that was the way it was going to be, it was supposed to be. It's sort of like, how do you describe color to a blind person who has never had sight? How do you describe the lightness and the ease and the freedom and the joy of not being depressed or anxious? And And it was really the birth of my son in the year 2000 that I really made a commitment to finding the answers that I needed to heal myself. Because I fear my mom struggled with depression and anxiety. I'm struggling with depression and anxiety. What are the chances that my son's going to have to deal with those issues? So I wanted to know how to deal with this. And what better way than to figure it out for myself? And so I started doing the work. And on and off for years, a couple years, trying to find the tools and the techniques and the strategies. Of course, the internet's out by that point, and so there's a lot of information out there. And so I just started doing the techniques, doing the exercises, doing creating the strategies for myself that would work for me. And one of the things that worked was hypnotherapy. And the reason I tried that is because in the books, the articles, the blog posts, everything that was out there in terms of personal development and growth and those kind of books and articles, the lectures and talks, they'd always had the bullet points or the top 5 things you can do to change your life kind of list. And they'd all 4 of them would be different, but there was always a constant, and it was always hypnotherapy. There's every single person seemed to be saying hypnotherapy is one of the best things you could do to help deal with mindset issues, deal with even physical issues, physical pain and healing issues of the body. And so I tried it, and I worked with somebody and dealt with the issues I was dealing with on top of some the exercises and techniques I was practicing in my life. One morning I woke up and I was just lying in bed watching the sun go through the trees, and I realized I hadn't been depressed in a long time. I kind
Yeah,
of moved out of it. It was like it was one of those slow things, but I realized, I feel that lightness, I feel that ease, and so that led to writing a book. I got to be in a writing contest with Hay House back in 2010, and got pretty close. Didn't win the contest, the publishing contract, but I got pretty close, and they asked me to write a chapter for a book called 30 Pearls of Wisdom, and that led to doing some publicity for that book when it came out. And I did the telesummit because back then you did telesummits, and there was this new thing of podcasting. Well, I guess it wasn't so new there. I think podcasting came in 2005, 2006, but about 2011, 2012, I started my own podcast. And then a few years later, I got the opportunity to train as a hypnotherapist, and I grabbed at it. It was a school in Albuquerque called the Hypnotherapy Academy of America. It's an extraordinary school, extraordinary training, extraordinary education, and 2.5 months, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's really intensive. And so I had to put a lot of stuff on the back burners to focus on that. And just the opportunity came and life aligned itself. And I've been working with people with therapeutic hypnosis ever since.
wow, that's an
Yeah.
awesome story.
Yeah.
And going from the depths of, it's pretty depression, any of that is pretty much the depths of hell, right? That dark
Yeah.
side, and to come out and then feel that light, and what a
Yeah.
difference, and how you get to help people with that.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And I do see a lot of us have had our own struggles that come into, like you said, the healing space, because we see what it's like to go through it, and it's just letting people know, hey, you don't have to. There is
Yeah.
help out, and we want to give back. So I love that. So then let's dive in talking about the overcoming fear and anxiety
Yeah.
and your
Yeah.
pearls of.
The kind of irony of that is you actually want some fear and anxiety in your life. Maybe not anxiety, but stress in your life. You don't want to get rid of it. You know, that little bit of anxiousness, that little bit of fear, that's what keeps you from going down the dark alley at midnight, even though it's a shortcut home. No, keep to the lighted streets, keep to the crowded streets. Yeah, it's going to take you another 15 minutes to walk home, but just be safe. Here in Arizona, I'm in Flagstaff, but down south in the desert, you're walking in a trail, there's a rattlesnake in the trail. Don't go up and pet the rattlesnake. That's not your friend. Move away, back away. That fear and that anxiousness around the rattlesnake is going to keep you safe. Don't peer too far over the edge of the Grand Canyon. That's what that fear is for.
That's the fight or flight. But that,
It's
what's
just,
that?
yeah, and it's necessary. It keeps you
Yeah.
safe. It keeps you alive.
Mm-hmm.
Really, the feeling state of anxiety and fear are warning signals, not unlike, say, somebody pulling the fire alarm in a building. And fire alarm goes off, the sirens are going off, the lights are going off, warning everybody that there's danger. You need to get to safety now. We also have a warning system. And when our subconscious mind perceives some sort of danger, our conscious mind perceives some sort of danger, we're going to get a warning signal. But that warning signal is feeling states within the body, feeling state of anxiety, feeling state of fear, anger, overwhelm, worry. That's warning that there's danger in the external environment. The big problem is with that situation, the mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And this is most noticeable when, say, somebody's having a nightmare in the middle of the night. Say, it could be something crazy, something ridiculous, like a cheeseburger and his two hot dog friends are chasing down the street throwing coconuts at you. It's stupid. It's never going to happen. And your body and mind, they can't tell. They can't tell that that's not a real threat. So you have the safety protocol of shoot first, ask questions later. And so even in deep sleep, you'll turn on the stress response. Your brain starts creating the hormones of adrenaline and cortisol. You've probably heard stories, you and your listeners, Susan, probably heard stories of crazy stories of grandmothers lifting cars off of babies. That's
Oh,
adrenaline.
sure.
That's not coursing through your body. Your brain creates these neuropeptides. These are molecules the brain creates, hundreds of millions of neuropeptides dumping into your bloodstream to send the signal of emotion to your body. That's why you feel anxious or angry, that you can differentiate between worry and joy and happiness and anger and anxiety because of these molecules. So these are literal molecules of fear, molecules of anxiety now being dumped into your bloodstream, looking for the right cells. 300% more blood is now moving to the big muscles of your arms to fight. 300% more blood moving to big muscles of your legs to escape. That's got to come from somewhere. So it's turning down the power on your immune system, turning down the power on your digestive system, all while you're in deep sleep. And so you have a physical reaction to the thoughts, or in some cases, the memories that are going on in your head. What if it's a war veteran, even though they're cozy, comfortable, safe in bed, and they're
And
starting to have a PTSD dream about the war, even though that was 30 years ago.
yeah.
And so your body is going to react to armor yourself to protect you from this danger. But what if it's an imaginary danger? And so that's when it becomes really unresourceful. It's not very resilient to keep turning on that stress response over and over and over again to things that aren't life-threatening. Because the big issue around this is what you practice, you get better at. And of course, we know this from if you play piano or guitar, or you dance, or you do martial arts, or you're learning a foreign language, or when we're little kids, we're learning to walk or ride a bicycle or something. What you practice, you get better at. And so, yes, you practice, you're gonna, it's gonna take you a bit, but you can get a black belt in judo or taekwondo. But what if you're practicing fear? What if you're practicing anxiety? What if you're practicing anger? We know those people in our lives that maybe they just at the drop of the hat get enraged, they get angry, maybe they're coworkers or family or friends. And for whatever reason, they're armoring themselves with that anger, whatever maybe possibly happened when they were growing up that caused that instruction in the subconscious mind to armor themselves with anger. They've practiced it so much now they don't even think about it. It's just a habit, just like tying your shoes. You don't have to think about tying your shoes. You don't have to think about walking across the room to the kitchen to get a glass of water. You just walk. You just all these things you don't have to think about zipping up your jacket. You just do it. Well, what about feeling anxious and angry or overwhelmed? And so that's a big part of the issue. What you practice, you get better at. What is strongest within your mind is what you do over and over again. And so that's actually part of the way to get yourself out is
Okay.
start practicing something else, which we can talk about in a minute. But
Sure.
it's one of those insidious things where you really don't want to get rid of fear and anxiety, but it gets to a point of just when it starts overwhelming your life, then it becomes unreversible. It's not good for you and it's ruining your health. Again, people get sick when they're stressed because that your immune system, the power of your immune system being turned down, the volume of your immune system is being turned down. Irritable bowel syndrome. If
Mhm.
people have had the unfortunateness of having experienced that, irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, the main cause of that is stress, anxiety, and hypervigilance. Even the pharmaceutical companies admit that. And so back about 25, maybe even 30 years ago, University of North Carolina medical school there, they were thinking, if it's stress and anxiety causing irritable bowel syndrome, wouldn't the cure be relaxing the mind and body to turn off the stress response, turn off the fight or flight. So all that energy goes back from the sympathetic nervous system over to the parasympathetic nervous system, the relaxation response. So they started experimenting, doing research on that, and doing all sorts of different kind of relaxation processes and techniques. And guess what? Hypnotherapy worked the best, because not only is the foundation of hypnotherapy relaxing the mind and body, but then you're adding in the healing suggestions and the new instructions within the subconscious mind. And what they found is that hypnotherapy within a 10-week period works as well as medication. And within a year, it's far superior in its efficacy
Wow.
than medication. And medication has all sorts of horrible side effects.
Side effects.
And
Yeah.
what's interesting about this work is that it's not that I'm fixing anybody. I'm not going to fix you. And hypnotherapy in and of itself is not going to be, you're going to fix yourself. And that's what's extraordinary about being on this podcast is this is what you talk about all the time. Is you have the power to do this, but it's a lot of it's just changing your mindset. And by changing your mindset, you can change your body. We know this. I just explained it, even just looking at a nightmare, just with the ridiculousness of having a nightmare or a ridiculous nightmare. It could also be a very traumatic kind of nightmare. But just by having an nightmare, you can change how you feel in your body. So that means you have control over that. If you take control over it, then you can change how you feel in your body. Turn off the stress response, all that energy goes back to your immune system, back to your digestive system. The digestive system will fix itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's the placebo effect.
Yeah.
We,
The
we've
body
been,
as a whole, the body as
yeah,
a whole will fix itself when we give it the right things mentally and physically.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the
Yeah.
medical community is just all about, here, take this pill, let's fix
Well,
it.
and I get it. I mean, there've been years and years and years, decades of research showing that exercise works as well as medication in curing chronic depression. And I'm not talking about just relieving Monday morning blues or
Mm-hmm.
your favorite TV show got canceled or something. I'm talking about chronic depression.
Mm-hmm.
Exercise works as well as medication. It's just, how do you get somebody who's depressed to exercise? They don't
That
want
is
to
exactly what I was
do that.
thinking. They don't want to do. They don't want to get up. How do you
Yeah.
get them?
And so
That's what
again,
that
it's
is. That's
the insidiousness of it. Hey, you can do this. Oh, just take a walk around the block. You'll feel better. If you can't get out of bed, how's that going to work? So, and
and
I feel sorry for the doctors. I don't think they want to prescribe pills. I think they want to practice medicine. I think they want to get people better. But between the insurance companies and people not wanting to go exercise,
yeah.
either due to the stress of life or the timing of life with family and work and things, it's like they're down to, okay, will you take a pill at least? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll take a
Yeah.
pill. Yeah.
Yeah. The stress. And the interesting thing with the stress, like you said, we need some. We actually need stress. And we're not going to eliminate stress in our lives. We have good stress, which is eustress. And then we have the crappy stressors, right? Whether you have an issue with a relationship, work can be a crappy stress, or there's good stress. My business is growing. I'm doing the podcast. That's stressful. It's a great stress because I've wanted this for so long, but it's also like I feel the effects of my body. And then when we talk about fear, I told you I was going to say this, is even with this podcast, I have wanted to do a podcast for 5 years.
Yeah.
But the fear over putting myself out there in front of people to get hammered and the haters and all, I'm just saying, this is who I am. It literally paralyzed me to hide behind my laptop and just meet with my client for several years. It can be paralyzing or it can be motivating. The stress can be motivating. That there's one of the, and I don't know how familiar you are with some of the genetic SNPs, but COMT, it breaks down the catecholamines, right? And as someone who's a GG, that's the warrior gene. They tend to handle the acute stress better. And it specifically when they are in a very low stress environment, they actually need some stress in their lives for better cognitive performance, right? There have been people that I've worked with that are literally like just so chill that they need a little something. So stress we can harness, but it's when, like you said, when it starts to overtake, forget about it. It just the whole immune system, people get sick. It's over that threshold that you start to see these things start to happen more. So this is great. So keep on
Well,
going. Keep on
I was gonna
going.
say, you're just to tag on to what you just said, which was so great, is yeah, we do need a little bit of stress. That's what gets us out of bed, to get to work on time, to get our homework turned in if we're in school, to
Mhm.
get that report done, to get to the meeting on time at work, to meet with the investors who maybe want to invest in our business, or the board of directors, or talk with our employees. That little bit of stress allows us to get that work done. That little bit of stress gets the athletes to maybe practice that an hour more to get to that peak state
Yeah.
of whether it's business or just life, or whatever hobby you may be doing, or if you're an athlete. And so you need a little bit. It's just when it peaks and goes down the hill, is now you're dealing with anxiety, and now you're dealing with overwhelm and worry, and it's shutting down your system, because again, all that you're pulling away from the systems of your body that you need to work at optimum levels. And so there's a couple of things, and I'm keeping my eye on the clock, so I want to make sure. I wanted to get this in because there's a technique I wanted to show people, if that's okay.
Should go
With
for
you,
it. That's why
a
we're
quick
here.
little 5 minute thing people can do, because you mentioned at the beginning about getting yourself in state, and we know this from athletes. They get themselves in state before whatever, if they're a
In the
basketball player,
zone.
before the game. We just had the Summer Olympics here.
Yeah.
When we're recording this, we just finished the Summer Olympics. I guarantee you, every single athlete, whether it's a solo performance like gymnastics, or they're swimming or running, whatever they're doing, every single athlete was putting themselves in state, getting themselves in the zone before they walked out to do their event. And I also guarantee you, every single one of them was spending some time in mental rehearsal. Meaning, not only were they practicing, let's say if they're doing gymnastics, they're on the mat, they're doing the twists, the turns, the tumbles, the flips. They're doing all the things to practice their routine so they can win the gold. Then they're going to go back to their room, wherever they are. They're going to sit on the couch, they're going to get in the recliner, they're going to close their eyes, they're going to mentally rehearse that, because we know that'll literally wire that into their brains. And so you can wire success into your brains, which also becomes very alarming. What if you're imagining and thinking of failure? Can you not then wire that failure? If somebody has to give a presentation at the meeting in front of the investors, board of directors, whatever, they got tapped to give the keynote at the conference, and now they don't. How did that happen?
I'm
And
sweating
as
thinking
they're
about that.
trying to go to bed, they're sleeping, and their mind's racing, going, "Oh my God, I'm going to stumble over my words. I'm going to forget what I'm going to say. My PowerPoint's going to be upside down. People are going to laugh and say they're going to throw things at me, and they're going to chase me off the stage with pitchforks and fire." It just gets stupid. The mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So it thinks you're at some sort of conference getting booed at and laughed at. And now you're wiring that not only into your nervous system, but literally into your brain. And then you go to the conference and you stumble over your words and you forget what you're going to say, and your PowerPoint's upside down, and go figure. You literally practice that. And so what if you started practicing something else? What if before you walked into getting a state doesn't have to be for athletes or musicians. Certainly, you see the big artists, Beyonce and Taylor Swift and Bruce Springsteen. Yes, they're getting themselves in state. Ian McKellen, the great actor Ian McKellen, most people know him from Lord of the Rings and some of the X-Men movies and things like that. But he's a great Shakespearean actor. He's been doing Shakespeare for some 60 years. He's got to be, I think, close to 80 at this point.
Oh,
And
at
he just
least.
did,
Yeah.
yeah, he just did King Lear in London. And I guarantee you, even though he had 60 years experience as a Shakespearean actor, the Royal Shakespearean Theater, he's going to put himself in state before he walks out on stage to become King Lear. If I'm sure many of the people that are listening or watching this, and I'm sure you are, Susan, know Tony Robbins, the
Oh,
great
yeah.
personal growth. Okay? All right, this guy's been doing it for 40 years. He started in the 1980s. And that big book of his that went viral, Awaken the Giant Within, I think it was the late 80s, early 90s. But this guy's been doing it for 40 years. And that documentary that just came out about him, I Am Not Your Guru, which used to be on Netflix, but it's interesting if you like that kind of thing. And it just follows him through a week of one of those week-long events when he's speaking to an arena full of people, 10,000 people. And it just follows him during that week, before, on stage, behind the scenes. But it shows him in his morning, shows Tony Robbins getting up in the morning. And he does what he does for himself. This is his routine that he feels works best for him. He does the cold plunge. That's the first. Then he jumps on a little trampoline to waken up his adrenal glands, get his adrenal glands going. Then he does his meditation work that's right for him. And then he goes to the event. He's talking to the backstage people, the producers, the stage manager, the people who are working with the small groups, the breakout groups. And he's talking to his family. He's talking to his kids. He's talking to his wife. He's talking to his accountant about the new business he's setting up. Then, before he goes out on stage, he puts himself in state. After 40 years, he still puts himself in state before he walks on stage because he knows the people who have spent some $3,000-$4,000 to see him for a week want the Tony Robbins. They don't want to see Tony Robbins, the guy who's talking to his accountant about tax implications of opening up a business here or there or everywhere. He's not talking to a producer or the guy who's a father to kids or husband to his wife. They want to see the Tony Robbins. So he puts himself in state after 40 years. And so we can take something from that. And who do you need to be during your day? I mean, you're doing this podcast. Maybe after this, you have some consultation calls. You're going to work with some clients later on. Maybe you have some family stuff going on later on this evening. There's all these different hats you're wearing today, and they all require a different part of you. You're all one person, but they all require this kind of different part, just like Tony Robbins has these different parts of him. And so why not put yourself in state? Certainly any athlete, same situation. They have a manager. They're going to do a commercial for shoes or Wheaties or whatever. But they're also an athlete, but they're also married. They're all these different people. But when they get up to the starting line or they get up to the edge of the mat before they start their gymnastics routine, they put themselves in state. And so what if we did that too before our day, before we walked into work? Imagine sitting in your car, whether you're an employee or you're starting your career or you're running a business. What if you sat in your car or sat in your office right before addressing your employees or something and put yourself in state of who you need to be? And so one way of doing this is this really quick exercise I want to show people. Now, of course, if you're driving your car, just keep driving your car, clock where we are in the interview and come back to this because this is a really cool exercise. If you're in a safe place where you can do this and concentrate on it, do it. If you're concentrating on something else, you're watching the kids, if you're driving a car, do it this later. But if you're in a safe place and you can concentrate and focus on this, do it with me now. But this is a really quick exercise that was developed by Richard Nongard and a great hypnotherapist and psychotherapist. And it's called three. So that's 3, 2,
Hey,
1.
number three, people.
Number 3, 3, 2, 1, reset. And we're going to reset the nervous system. We're going to actually reset the brain and change the chemistry in your brain. We're going to do this in about 5 minutes. And so it starts with 3 slow breaths because a breath is going to reset your nervous system. A deep breath into your belly because you want to get the air into the bottom of your lungs. When we stress breathe, we're only breathing the top part of the lungs. You've seen a picture of a lung. You've seen a diagram. It's very narrow at the top and wider at the bottom. So if you're stress breathing, you're only getting a little bit of exercise. And this brain of ours takes 20% of the oxygen we breathe in. And so we want to take a deep breath into our bellies. When we get a breath into our abdomen, we lower flatten out the diaphragm, and we can air into the bottom of the lungs. So breathing deeply, we also have this vagus nerve comes out of the back of our head. This is that thing when we have something like 12 cranial nerves. When we touch a hot pot, signal goes up the nerve to your head, says, hey, you're touching a hot pot, let it go, goes back down to your hand, and you let go of the pot all within a millionth of a second.
Yeah.
The 10th cranial nerve is the vagus nerve. Vagus is Latin for wanderer because it attaches to the eyes, to the ears, muscles of your jaw, goes past your vocal cords, attaches to your heart, to your lungs, and to your gut. The vagus nerve is a big part of that parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system is stress response. Parasympathetic nervous system is the relaxation response. The vagus nerve is a big part of that. It's attached to your lungs. By breathing slowly, gently, deeply, you can stimulate the vagus nerve and therefore activate the parasympathetic nervous system and turn off the stress response. How simple is this? This is really easy. You've been given everything you need to regulate your nervous system, and a big part of it is the breath. So we start with the breath, 3 slow breaths. Again, only if you're in a safe place and can focus on this. Otherwise, come back to this. Well, we're going to cross our arms, grab our shoulder. Now we're creating bilateral stimulation. When you're feeling that anxiety, that panic, it's lighting up a part of the right side of the brain. It needs energy, nutrients, fuel, blood supply, oxygen. So it's vacuuming it away from these other parts of the brain. These other parts of the brain go quiet, and you light up all this panic and this anxiety and this fear. So how do you undo it? Bilateral stimulation. And that's just by moving your body. Here I got my little squeezy ball for listeners. I'm just going to move the ball from one hand to the other, like doing a T or a cross with my arms, hold them out stretched, ball
Moving
in
from
one
the
hand, and then I'm going to switch the ball to the other hand. And that's just creating bilateral stimulation. I'm operating all these different parts of the brain now, walking, bilateral stimulation. If you remember somebody back in school or maybe in a meeting, they were drumming, tapping on their knees, drumming on their knees. They're nervous. They're a bit stressed. They're trying to self-soothe themselves. And so they're drumming on their knees. It's bilateral stimulation. And you're operating these different parts of the brain that vacuums away that stress and anxiety. So you feel better. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our shoulders and start squeezing our shoulders. You'll notice that this is a hug. You're now hugging yourself. And whether you just squeeze your shoulders or give yourself a bear hug or do the havening technique, which is rubbing your hands up and down your arms from your wrists back up to your shoulders, feels good. Whatever feels best, because this is nurturing, healing touch. And
love this out there, you connectors. One of my health intimacy.
So even if you're doing this hug for yourself, it's nurturing touch. You're now creating oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine in your brain. You're literally hacking your brain. You're changing your brain chemistry, hacking your brain. And we are also going to supersize this by thinking of somebody we want to give a hug to. So again, only if you're in a safe place, you can concentrate and focus on this exercise. But if you aren't, close your eyes. And as you're giving yourself this hug, whatever feels best to you, the havening technique or just squeezing or bear hug, think of somebody you want to give a hug to. The mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So while you're feeling this hug kinesthetically, while your physiology is creating this nurturing, healing touch, you're now lighting up the visual part of your brain and thinking of somebody you want to give a hug to. If that's somebody in your life today, a family member, a dog, a pet, a cat, maybe an animal that you saw in a nature documentary. Maybe you align yourself with the spirit animal, the falcon, or the tiger, the lion, the elephant, whatever. Maybe it's somebody who's no longer with us. Maybe your grandmother, your grandfather. Maybe somebody you've never met before, Joan of Arc or Mother Teresa or Gandhi, somebody who inspires you. Just pretend that you're hugging somebody, sense them, visualize them, whatever works for you. And this is now creating those neural peptides, those molecules the brain creates. Only now you're creating love, joy, and happiness. Literal molecules of love, joy, and happiness, hormones of oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, just dumping into your bloodstream. And you're now turning off the sympathetic nervous system, turning on the parasympathetic nervous system. And you can do this within 5-6 minutes. And this is a great way to reset yourself and set yourself up and put yourself and say, a great time to do this is in the morning. And so when you're ready, you can just come out of it, maybe shake it off a little bit. But a great time to do this is in the morning, because what this also is doing, refocusing your reticular activating system. And that's part of the brain that's one's always looking for danger. That's that part of the brain, even in deep sleep. Mom will hear the baby coughing in the other room and wake up. You smell smoke, you wake up. You hear the back door creak open at 3:00 in the morning, you wake up. You're too hot, you're too cold, you got to go to the bathroom, you wake up. That's your reticular activating system. Just radar all of your internal environment as well as your external environment. But that's the thing in your peripheral vision. You see the car going towards the red light and you just slam on the brakes automatically without thinking about it. That's your reticular activating system. The second task of your reticular activating system is to solve problems, find solutions, and create answers. And so this is that part of the brain where if you're thinking about buying a new car and thinking about buying a Toyota Prius, Toyota Priuses everywhere.
That's so true.
And they were there yesterday, they're there the day before, but you didn't notice them.
Now you notice them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And now your neighbor has one. You didn't notice that before. And then you think, well, I like being out in nature. I like hiking. I like camping. I should get a 4-wheel drive car. I should get a Jeep. Now you refocus your reticular activating system, and in finding a solution to the new car, think, oh yeah, 4-wheel drive, a Jeep would be good. Now you see Jeeps everywhere, but they were parked right next to the Priuses. You just didn't notice them. Just as you're not noticing the Kias the Dodge Caravans or the BMWs. And with this part of the mind is that if you've ever had the experience, whether you student or your listeners, your watchers have had the experience of your day going from bad to worse, it's because you focused on problems. You focused on what's going wrong. And so what are you going to see? Things going wrong. The big issue is, and this goes back even into the epigenetics, we're being inundated with 11 million bits of information per second through our five senses, what we hear, see, taste, touch, smell, all this information coming out. So it's like the brightness of the room or the lights in the room. We don't notice unless it's too bright or it's too dark. The temperature, which we don't notice unless it's too hot or too cold. All this information sounds like we don't hear the sound of the fan or the air conditioner or the heater unless maybe there's a knock. What is that knocking? It's been on all day, but now it's a knock. Now you hear it. All this information is coming at us, but we filter out most of it. We're only cognizant of 50 bits of that 11 million. And so if you want to focus on problems, then you're going to eliminate and not see all the things to be grateful about, all the things to be happy about, all the things to be joyful about. And how's that going to affect your body? How's that going to affect your mindset? How's it going to affect your spirit? And so this exercise, imagine doing this in the morning, even just for 5 minutes. You can do this lying down in bed. You can do it lying on your side, lying on your back, after you've gotten up, before you walk into work. Sitting in your car, do this exercise. Because you're going to flood your brain with oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine. You're going to think of people that you care about, that you love, an animal, a pet, your dog, your cat. And you're going to flood yourself with all these neuropeptides, these molecules of joy, happiness, love. And then you're going to walk into work. Imagine how differently your day is going to go in just 5 minutes. And if your day goes sideways, as sometimes it does, because there are challenges in life, reset yourself. It's 3, 2, 1 reset, not 3, 2, 1. Do this once and your life is rainbows and unicorns. Do it again. Do it as you're falling asleep, because this is a great way to hack your mind when it starts ruminating about all the stuff that's gone on. Like your mind's trying to protect you, and it may not seem like that, but when you ruminate at night when you're falling asleep, it's your brain kind of running scenarios, or your mind, I guess would be a more appropriate way to say it. Your mind running scenarios on how to keep you safe, whether it's something that happened in the past, whether it was yesterday, last week, or 30 years ago, or a thing you may be fearing in the future, like the public speaking thing. Sort of like a flight simulator. Pilot needs to fly into London next week. Never been to London. They're going to practice by getting on a flight simulator. What happens if there's turbulence over the Atlantic? What if it's in the dark? What if it's raining? What if they switch runways? They're going to practice every scenario that could go wrong. That way, when they fly there, they feel comfortable, they feel confident, and they know what to do when something goes wrong. That's what your mind's trying to do. When you're sleeping and it starts ruminating about all that stuff, and it just gets crazier and stupider, and people are throwing rotten tomatoes at you while you're trying to give your speech. That's because it's trying to, what happens if, this happens? But your mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And so it thinks it's really happening. And so it just anchors in that stress and anxiety. So how do you undo that? What if you did this? What if you hacked your entire system, your nervous system and your mind, your brain, and literally flooded your brain with oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, and drifted off to sleep thinking of somebody you cared about? How much different is your sleep going to be? How different are you going to wake up? And then when you wake up, do it again.
Yeah.
And at lunchtime, do it again. There's no bad side effects to doing this 10, 20 times a day.
Sure. Yeah. It's free, people. It's free.
And it's free. No prescription needed.
Anything, nothing. Yeah. I love what you were saying about focusing on what's wrong. And I see this with a lot of people that come to me. And it was me for a long time. I have chronic Lyme disease. And when I first found the DNA at a conference down in Austin, this is back in 2019, and I was talking to the chief medical officer about DNA and all. And I said, but I have chronic Lyme disease. And he goes, I don't care. What an asshole.
Yeah.
Really? And he said, it doesn't matter. If you focus on that, you're going to keep focusing on that. What we focus on is everything that's right, and what do you need to be optimal instead of where the problems are. And that hit me. It was like a gut punch.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, that makes sense. And so since then, and the more I stopped, because I had such a focus on Lyme for years. I think it drove I think it drove my last long-term relationship away, because that was what I focused on. Everything was Lyme. And nothing got better. I kept finding things worse. Like everything got worse, including my health part got worse. When I changed that around to stop looking for the problems and start looking for the positive, and I heard a guy, I can't remember who it was. This was years ago now, within the last 5 years. I heard on one of the morning programs, and he said to, like you said, train your brain, start to look for the good in the day. So I throw my bedroom door open, scare the crap out of my cats every morning, and just go, morning, guys, it's going to be a great day. And literally, even if I wake up and feel I'm not myself today or just feel off, I still would throw that door open and say, it's going to be a great day. And then you start looking for the good. So with my clients, they come to me saying, I have this wrong and this wrong. And I go, yeah, okay, but here's what we need to start looking at, what's right, or what do we need to do to get right? Because the more you look for problems, what happens? The more we find, right? The more, so you can do tests and tests, all these freaking tests, and you just keep finding more shit that's wrong. Let's dial it back and start look at all the things that are good. So I love how this goes into that, and how you can have this reset by just thinking of something that is great, the touch of a person, an animal. And so when I went through this exercise with you just now, I started with one person, and then you bring on animals. And I thought of my two cats that I had, one for 15 years, one for 17 years, that aren't here. And then I pictured one was in each arm. So is that okay that you can bring it? Then you, right before, then you said, or someone that's not here. I thought Graham. And then you said like a grandmother. I was like, he's hitting all my people. And it was just this feeling of just this, a peace, very much a peace.
Yeah.
So
And
was I
doing
okay
that.
going for,
Yeah, imagine doing that 3, 4 times a day. Just what we're talking about is 5, 6 minutes. I mean, you could do it for half an hour if you'd like, of course.
yeah.
But if you just have a couple of minutes, there are things you can do. And I know it can be, you can feel beat down, especially if you're struggling with depression, anxiety, you have a physical issue, whether it's Lyme disease or you're dealing with something else, irritable bowel syndrome, something else. And you said, yeah, but there is stuff wrong. And that can take because look, it's about survival. It's about feeling safe. And if you're not feeling safe because your body is not well, that can be hard to deal with. And so you say, I can list all these things wrong. And maybe one way of looking at this is 0 to 10, 0 being the most peaceful you've ever felt, the most living at the best life ever in all areas, health and mind and spirit and all that. And 10 being the worst you've ever felt. Where do you feel right now? And hopefully it's not a 10 or an 11, but let's say you say an 8, maybe you say a 9. Okay. What makes it not a 10?
Mhm.
And start there. If you only got 1 out of 10, okay, what's that one thing? Maybe it's family, or maybe work is going well, or maybe there's these other things that are going well in your life. What's that one thing that keeps it from being an absolute 10, or the 2 things or the 3 things? And start with that, and then make it bigger. Turn up the volume on it. Turn up the brightness on it. Turn up the sensation on it. Just make it feel better. And I know it's a little quippy thing to say in just 30 seconds, because I know we're running up against time. But this is the work that we do, and we can help with. Find something to help you facilitate that. Because again, it's not that we sit here and fix you. You're going to fix yourself, because that's how powerful you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk about, you have a program. Does your program, the ACE test that like we said, can be used for anything? It's not just test taking. Is that around hypnotherapy?
Yeah, basically it uses a lot of different techniques. And it's basically, I walked out of my situation with this toolbox full of tools. And when I started as a hypnotherapist, I was getting I still do, get a lot of people struggle with test anxiety. I see that there's not a lot out there for that. And so I specifically set this up for people struggling with test anxiety, whether you're a teenager dealing with the SATs or just final exams, or you're in university, you're taking the MCATs or the LCATs to get into law school or medical school, or you're taking the bar exam because you've graduated and want to become a lawyer, or an electrician, a plumber. All these different kind of trades and professions need licensing and certification exams to take with the state, whether you're a psychotherapist or a doctor, something.
Mhm.
A real estate exam. What if you're a 65-year-old, 70-year-old who's just bored with retirement and was, oh, you know what? I may well start a part-time career as a real estate agent, and you haven't taken a test in some 50 years. Uh,
Sure.
this is for you. It's mainly geared towards tests and exams, but what else is an exam? Job interview is an exam.
Like
Public
you said,
speaking. A lot of this comes from fear of failure or fear of being judged. And so where are you afraid of being judged? Where are you afraid of failing? And so, yeah, we're joking before we hit the record button about ace the test of life, ace any test of life or something. And it's, yeah, it can be used. All these exercise techniques can be used for any sort of issues around life. But I geared it specifically towards tests because I didn't think there was anything remotely valuable out there to help
mhm.
people with that. There's a handful of 5-minute YouTube videos and a couple of 55-minute courses on teachable.com and things. And I didn't think there was anything valuable. And so I created it specifically for tests and exams, but you really use it for any area of life, whether it's giving speeches or job interviews, or if you're a musician or actor doing auditions, anything like that.
So we can put the link for that will be in the show notes.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to check that out, maybe you have kids that, hey, we're back in school again, to help them out. Or SATs, things like that. ACT, that could be super
Yeah.
helpful.
Even if it's a little
And
kid. Little kids are great at this work, as you probably know. Little kids are great. They have great imaginations. They're great at pretending. That whole exercise we just did, 3, 2, 1 reset, majority of it's just plain pretend. Pretend you're hugging somebody. Little
yeah,
kids do
yeah,
that. They're great at that. Yeah.
yeah. They haven't built up all the walls that we have
Yeah.
by that point yet. And then what about working with you if someone wanted deeper hypnotherapy? Is that something you're
Sure.
currently
Yeah. I live in Arizona. I'm in Flagstaff, but I'd say probably 85% of my sessions are over Zoom now, just like we're doing here. And it
doing?
works really well, whether it's talk therapy or hypnotherapy or doctor's appointment. What research says, Zoom sessions work as well as in person because people feel comfortable and calm and safe in their homes. In fact, some research even showed Zoom sessions work better than in person because of that. And so I'm at Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. That's a hard one to remember and a hard one to spell.
We'll
But
put
if
it
you
in the
just went to I live in Flagstaff up in the mountains up in northern Arizona. And if you just went to Flagstaff Hypnosis, you would find me, Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. Or you can
awesome.
go to aceanytest.com, and I'm happy to talk with you about hypnotherapy there too. Just you can email me from either place.
And I've actually used hypnotherapy for sports recovery, sports
Oh yeah.
injury recovery. So it was probably 10 years ago now when I was up in Montana. And I thought, there's no way someone's going to hypnotize me like that. I'm going to get put out. And it was the strangest feeling of, I was very aware
Mm.
of where I was and what I was doing, but yet I didn't feel like I had much control. So when I had some crazy things happen, and here I had tears flowing, but there was nothing I could do about it. Like I was aware that they were there and what was happening, but yet I was just in such this
Well,
deep
it's your nervous system resetting itself. Yeah.
it was
So literally your
whew,
neurology and your neurology and physiology is resetting itself.
yeah,
And one of the ways it does that is through tears. And so while you're releasing hurt and pain and trauma, yeah, it's going to release it. So let it release. And while it's like, I know there's a lot of thoughts about, oh, you lose control. It's really your subconscious mind's in control. And it's releasing that stuff and doing it in the safest and gentlest way it knows how. And you need to release that trauma, that hurt and pain. And how's it going to happen? With you, it did it with tears.
yeah,
Other people, it can maybe happen in a different way. But what's fascinating about this is people, I can't be hypnotized, but you're telling me you're having this issue about feeling anxious every time you see a red car pass you by because you're in a car accident when you're 12 years old with a red car. It's like, it sounds like you're already hypnotized. So really a lot of this work is dehypnotizing you.
let's, yeah,
Yeah, or it's like you're in your office and you're doing the marketing, because you're the marketing person in your office, and the Bill and Fred next door, the accountants, are arguing once again because the numbers aren't adding up at the end of the month. And you start yelling at each other, and you start getting really sweaty, and you feeling like you need to hide and you're feeling really scared, even though it's like, hey, you're 50 years old. Oh, why are you feeling like this? It's the idiots next door, Bill and Fred. Maybe you grew up in a home that wasn't very safe. Maybe you grew up in a home when your parents fought and it was maybe a little bit violent. And the best way to keep yourself safe as a child was to hide and to make yourself small and not to be very bright. I know I'm smart, but shine your light.
Shining. Yeah.
You it
You
was tough
minimize yourself,
on yourself.
like
Yeah.
physically, and yeah.
And so if that's the instructions on how to keep yourself safe when you get triggered by hearing loud voices arguing, and that's going to come back to you, and you're going to get the warning signals of fear and anxiety and the feelings I need to hide, even if you're 50 years old, until you decide to change those strengths. So you're already hypnotized. You're creating an automatic physical response, even feeling that anxiety or that fear or that trauma, that anger, maybe even getting the sweats or an upset stomach or something. You're literally changing your physiology, and you're not doing it on purpose. So in a sense, you're already hypnotized. You've hypnotized yourself. So let's dehypnotize you.
I love it.
And
I
if you
love
need
it.
to release in a way that shake if you need to shake or jump up and down or cry or whatever you need to do, let your neurology and physiology reset itself and release all that hurt and pain you've been carrying, which can be so heavy.
Yeah.
Just let it go.
Yeah. Absolutely. And there's some of the health types have a much more overactive central nervous system and brain that keeps going. And for them, it'll play even more than some of the others. I know I can get outside and work out, and a lot of it'll go, but for a lot of other people, they can't. So this is just fabulous information all the way around, and I'm going to use this. And it was just one funny thing that popped in my head when you talk about the different types test takers and stuff. So I'm a retired police officer. I don't think you knew that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Surprise!
Yeah.
Can't you tell?
Yeah.
and and there was a woman up in Montana. I don't know how many times I pulled her over. It, she never had, and every time I pulled her over, she said, "I can't I can't pass the test because I get test anxiety." That was her excuse. I swear it was like 4 or 5 times the last time I had to arrest her. So I said, "You can't be out here without a license, and now you have no excuse." And this is multiple times, but it was just funny because that was her excuse. Now, whether it was real or not, who knows? But it was just she said, "I can't. I panic when I try to take the test, so I'd never be able to pass it." So I was
Yeah.
thinking,
And it's not that's what a lot of people I work with. They're extraordinarily intelligent people. I was working with somebody who had her master's degree. She was top of her class. But when she went to graduate school, she's top of her class getting her bachelor's, top of her class in high school. But when she went to get to graduate school to get her master's, everybody was top of the class. It was a school full of the one percenters
yeah,
of top of the classers. And it made her anxious. And so she worked harder and she stayed up later and she crammed longer and she did more work. And that anxiousness and that type A personality just stayed with her. And she decided to become an audiologist to work with kids, to hearing impaired kids. What a great way to serve the world, to help
yeah.
children hear. And she's an extraordinary challenge. People spent tens of thousands of dollars with this training to niche being an audiologist and hundreds upon hundreds of hours of training over the course of a year and couldn't pass the licensing exam to start her career. Starting
Wow.
salary was like $80,000 to start, and she couldn't pass the test. And each test was like $600.
Oh my
And
God.
it's like, and plus the humiliation and embarrassment of telling your family, your friends that you didn't pass again.
Yeah.
And finally, and
Yeah.
then that's the unfortunate thing of being a hypnotherapist, you're usually last on the list of, I got nothing else. I've tried everything else. I spent
Tried
years
everything else.
talk therapy and everything. I guess I'll try hypnotherapy and then bing, bang, boom. Let's heal this. But work with her and help with the situation,
Yeah.
pass the test.
Wow.
And it has nothing to do with intelligence. It has to do with that
No.
fear of being judged.
Yeah.
It can be
Again,
overwhelming.
I bring it back to me with doing this
Yeah.
or even doing someone else's podcast. Oh my God, what if they ask me a question? And all my friends, I've had clients say, "Susan, you know your stuff. Why
Yeah.
just go talk about
That's
it."
that's the
But it's
thing.
being
Yeah.
that feeling. It's that Cindy Brady. You're probably around my time if you remember that, where she
Yep.
was on the game show. She knew everything. She gets on the game show, and that's how you use this analogy all the time, like Baton Rouge, Baton Rouge. She's just a deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel. And it is even in the police academy, I remember having to take apart the shotgun, I believe it was, and do the nomenclature. And I am not a technical person. Now, did I get it? Yes. But the thought of being one-on-one with this instructor and having to explain it, the tears started. There goes the flow, right? The
Yeah.
tears started, and he just stopped me. He grabbed the gun and he said, "Stop." He said, "Bring it, just stop for a minute. You know this stuff."
Yeah.
So
You know the stuff.
one step at a time, instead of saying, "Here, tell me all about this," he said, "No, what's this? And what does this do?" And it relaxed, but I was shaking. And I did the same thing getting certified to do my DNA. My level 2, I had to do it with the chief medical officer. And I was sitting in this chair, which is leather, and it was the middle of the summer, but I had the AC on, the window shut, and I had to do a demo read on him. And he is very cerebral, like very opposite of how I communicate. Let's put it
Yeah.
that way. And I said, "Please be gentle on me." He's like, "You're going to be fine." So we went through it, and he said, "I'm not even going to have you finish." He said, "You passed with flying colors." I was completely soaked. I was stuck to my chair. I just said that the amount of anxiety, that thought of it's that performing and having to be judged, like you said, is literally like debilitating. So
Literally
having
change your
something like this is
physiology.
so
Yeah, it's
valuable.
extraordinary.
Yeah, yeah.
Through thought alone or through fear alone, you change your
Fear.
physiology, and even to the point of shaking and
Turning
things.
things
And
on and off.
you knew the information. That's what's so extraordinary about this. You knew. So again, it's like you're already hypnotized. You're creating a physical response to thoughts that are imaginary. That this, I guess, the person is to a certain extent judging you, but the information backwards and forwards. But you could take the gun apart and put it back together blindfolded in your home,
Yeah.
and you studied and you practiced and you worked with your study group and with your friends and other, whoever you're working with. But when you get to that testing side, all of a sudden that thought, and maybe because in the 6th grade, somebody gave that book report, that history report up in front of class, and it didn't go well, and the kids laughed. And
Yep.
and the instructions, it's not safe. Or you did a test and you didn't study in junior high or something, and you got in trouble with your parents and you got grounded, you couldn't go to the dance or go out with your friends or whatever. And so there was ramifications around failing. And so now that's the instruction. And again, you hypnotize yourself like tests are dangerous. Because the last time I took a test, it didn't go very well. And even though I know the material, there was some hurt and some pain the last time I took a test or gave a presentation in front of school, even though it was 6th grade. And 10-year-olds can be mean, and they like,
Brutal.
and brutal. Yeah. And so in a sense, we can all hypnotize ourselves to create these instructions on how to keep ourselves safe, to the point of creating an actual physical response. And that's the whole thing you talk about. Epigenetics. What is that doing to your health?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Turning genes on or off, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a fascinating conversation.
Yeah.
Again, we're going to have in the show notes all the ways to contact Craig, to look at his ascending test, to potentially work with him with hypnotherapy to help you with some of your things. And I'm so grateful that we were able to connect. We had a little time issue this morning with the time difference. And I said, "Hey, can you hop on now?" And he goes, "Let's do it." So
I'm not very good with math sometimes. So
neither am I. Are you kidding? But it all worked out, and I'm so glad, because I knew this was going to be an awesome conversation that I think everybody's going to relate to. So I'm very grateful that we were able to connect and get you on here. And thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Susan.
Yeah. So check out the show notes, everybody. Reach out to Craig. Share this podcast, please, because I guarantee you it's going to resonate with someone that needs to hear this. And that's why we're here, to create awareness around everything that can affect us, mind, body, soul, all of it. So thank you, Mr. Craig Meriwether. Everybody go out, have a wonderful day, and be your most authentic self. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much for tuning into my podcast. If you enjoyed this week's episode, I'd love for you to share it with someone who would find the information useful. Also, if you could leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts, It'll help the information get out to others. You can check out my podcast site and sign up for my newsletter for updates and upcoming shows, and that link is in the show notes below. And go make it a great day and let your authentic self shine.